Hi, this is Joe again with another review. For saying in this video, we're going to be discussing the 1985 teen movie, The Breakfast Club, starring Molly Ringwald, John Nelson, Anthony Michael Hall, Emilio Estevez, Ali Sheedy, and Paul Gleason. Of course, this movie is one of the 10,000 movies that John Hughes either wrote or directed or both. Or at least wrote the movie. In this case, John Hughes did both, wrote and directed the film. And it's also one of the 10,000 movies that John Hughes movies that Molly Ringwald starred in. And he starred in just about every one of those movies back in the 80s. And of course, this is one of the popular of the teen films. Believe it or not, I watched this movie for the very first time just last night, and I'm a child of the 80s. I mean, I grew up during this time, and I've never seen The Breakfast Club until now. So it's like, geez, where you been in the last 36 years since the last time when the movie came out? Well, that's because all John Hughes movies are all the same thing. I mean, it's not that different. The locations may vary, of course, from movie to movie, but it's pretty much the same thing. And that's about teenage angst, about teenager problems, and it's like every character in this movie has problems. And so if you watch one movie, then a second movie, and a third movie that John Hughes has at least written, if not written and directed, the movies are pretty much all the same thing. I mean, it's not that different from one movie to another, except maybe the location where the movie takes place. It all takes place in a high school, but where in the school it takes place. You know what I mean? And in the case of The Breakfast Club, it takes place on a Saturday afternoon. It was sort of a Saturday morning, where it ends in the late afternoon. About 5 kids who are in detention, and this movie is very claustrophobic because they're in practically the same location. They're in the library of the school all day long, pretty much all day long. There's one sequence where they're running around in the school, avoiding the principal, who was played by Paul Gleason, who, of course, later on, 3 years later, was in the first Die Hard movie. So there's only 2 movies that Paul Gleason is known for, and I believe he has since passed away. But those are the 2 movies he's known for, being the principal in The Breakfast Club and being the deputy police chief in Die Hard. Giving John McClane crap in Die Hard. So there's only 2 roles unfortunately he's known for. And The Breakfast Club is really about his 5 teenagers. As a matter of fact, not one of these actors, except for Molly Ringwald, I think she was the only teenager. I think she was about maybe 17 or 18 or so in this movie, or around there. And she was the only legitimate teenager in this movie. Everybody else is in the 20s or almost 30. In the case of John Nelson, almost 30 years old when he did this movie. So it's like not really typecast. Just because the young look, it doesn't mean they are teenagers. I mean, they should hire teenagers for these movies. It's almost like of Hollywood hiring actors who look younger than they actually are, but we know in reality that they don't look like teenagers. And Molly Ringwald is the only legitimate teenager in this. I think she was about, like I said earlier, like 17, 18 years old. I know when she did 16 Candles, which was another John Hughes movie, which I previously reviewed, she was legitimately 16 years old the year this movie came out. So at least it was proper typecasting, for Molly Ringwald in that movie. And this movie, I think, took place like a year later. She was about like 17 years old. So she's the only legitimate teenager, but everybody else was in their either the early 20s or the mid or late 20s. I know in the case of Ali Sheedy, she was about maybe 25 or so when she did this movie. She is. These actors are way too old to play teenagers. And unfortunately, that's who they cast in this movie. I'm not saying they weren't good actors, but that's who they hired for this role. And The Breakfast Club, even though it's considered a teen classic, it's boring as hell. It's almost a 2 hour. The movie is just under 2 hours in length. It's boring. It's a boring movie, and they all talk about their lives, and each one has either some type of personal problem in some way. Like John Nelson, he plays like the rebel. This character is probably the rebel in the film. He claims he was abused by his parents and stuff, and people didn't know what the other actors didn't know what to believe or not, because he's always constantly being an a-hole through this whole movie. And then you had Anthony Michael Hall's character, who actually got an F in I think in shop class, and it's the only F he's ever received. He's got like straight A's in school, and it's like, what my parents would think of me, and he was thinking of killing himself because he actually got an F in the class. And you had Martin Ringwald, whose parents were divorced or about to get a divorce, and they playing her one against the other. One parent against the other, using her like a frisbee, going back and forth between the two parents. And Ellie Sheedy, she plays like the punk rocker, the grunge rocker there, and the only reason why she's there is because she has nothing else better to do. She's just hanging out there in the school on a Saturday afternoon. And and then you have the principal running around complaining about these kids are no good, these kids are lousy, and no matter what we do, the kids are going to hand the world over to these young kids, they're going to screw up the world and stuff like that. And it's bringing to the janitor, and the janitor is the only adult or it's probably the only adult in the school other than the principal. And the janitor says, they're like, I bet you that when you were a kid, when you went to school, the teachers and principals probably said the same thing about us when we were in school, when the parents got together. So, or when the teachers got together, they probably say the same thing about us as we are saying about these kids. And the principal went like this, and that's about it. And in this movie, even though it's considered a classic, I thought it was the one thing that really sold this movie is not only the performances of the actors, which were top notch. I'm not saying that they didn't do a good performance in this movie, but it's also the soundtrack. There's one good thing about John Hughes movies is the soundtracks are damn good, and that's what made the '80s so good. Is that all the most popular movies back in the '80s, pretty much most of not all of them had a terrific soundtrack to it, and people were buying the movie soundtracks because usually 9 times out of 10 were better than the movies themselves. And I felt the same way for The Breakfast Club. And it feels like more like a play more than a movie that I'm watching, because it's in most of the movies in the one space in the library, and these 5 kids talking to each other. And it gets really boring, really fast, and the reason why they got tired of The Breakfast Club is because all 5 of them had to write an essay to the principals like, who am I? Why am I here? What do I expect for life? And that type of thing. And Anthony Michael Hall is the smart one of the group of the 5 students. And and the essay was from his point of view. And said, I'm writing this essay on behalf of all 5 of us. And he wrote sincerely The Breakfast Club at the end of the essay. He called the 5 stars the Breakfast Club. That's how the movie because the movie does start in the morning, by 7 in the morning, and it ends like in the afternoon for 8 hours. They're in the school for 8 hours, so it does feel like it's sitting there for 8 hours watching this movie. Because it's that boring. To me, it's boring. The only highlight in the film for me is when they run around the school because they decided to go to John Nelson's locker, and he had pot in the. And this is one of the problems I have with this movie. He does go to some dark places. There's one part where John Nelson had marijuana in his locker, and he gave everybody a pot, and they're all smoking a pot, and the principal who's there in the school, and his office is just across the hall. He doesn't smell it. He doesn't smell the marijuana, or doesn't check on the kids. And that's the problem they have with the movie, because there's been long periods in this movie where the 5 of them are hanging out in the library on detention, on a Saturday detention, and the principal who is there, or the janitor who's there, neither one of them is sitting there with these 5 students through it the whole time. Now, I know how it is in school. I know at my school, when I was in school, we never had detention. When I was in public school. Here in New York, we don't have detention here in New York. But or at least New York City, we don't have detention here. But at least when I was in school. So usually, and other depictions of kids in detention usually have a teacher in there to watch the supervise the kids in detention. And so the principals and the janitor, the only adults who are in the school, neither one of them was supervising the kids the whole time. So in the library, there's one part in the library where they're actually smoking pot in the library, and nobody's watching them. I mean, come on. I mean, like, what the hell? I mean, come on. I mean, it stretches the disbelief here. I mean, why aren't these kids supervised through the whole time they were in the in detention? I mean, come on. I mean, it's like screenwriting 101. I know John Hughes is dead now. May he rest in peace. But still, why isn't anybody watching these kids? I mean, the kid they're smoking pot in the library there, and they're smoking pot when they're in detention, and nobody is watching this. I mean, and the principal that can't smell it. I mean, come on. I mean, it's beyond stupid here, folks. It's like really beyond stupid what's going on. And unfortunately, that's what goes on through this whole movie. It was like this, and that's why I did. That's why I'm not giving that positive review. Like everybody says, "Oh, how can you not like the Breakfast Club?" Well, because of the scenes like that. Because it's like little nitpicks is what bothers me through this movie. True, I didn't watch the movie back in 1985 when the movie came out, but watching it now as an adult, you see the problems with this movie. And eventually, if you see other John Hughes movies, you see the problems in those movies as well. And it's like if you see one John Hughes movie, you've seen them all pretty much. So that's my review of the movie, The Breakfast Club. Please click on the video. Please rate it. Please subscribe to my channel. Please forward this video on your Facebook pages. You can check out all my reviews and on my YouTube channel at rowdyc.com. It's all WDY. And at c.com. It's our homepage and Rowdy Reviewer. Christine Moore. Please check out all of his videos on his website. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time.